بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. تكملة لمحاضرتنا اللي سابقة اللي كانت for the esophagus. The esophagus is the part from the alimentary canal tubule extended from the pharynx to of the stomach اللي هو عبارة thin muscular tubule extended from the pharynx to of the stomach. The esophagus tubule subdivided three parts: cervical part, thoracic, and abdominal part. This for the anatomy. For the histology, the wall of the esophagus consists from the four layers: mucosa, submucosa, muscularis externa, serosa, and the adventitia. The mucosa composed from the three layers: epithelia, this epithelia, lamina propria, muscularis, mucosa. The type of the epithelial lining of the esophagus by the stratified squamous non-keratinized epithelia. This type of the epithelia rests on the lamina propria. The lamina propria in the esophagus by the loose connective tissue. In the sub-region of the esophagus has the lymphatic nodule with the lymphocyte. The muscularis mucosa, one layer from the smooth muscle fiber separated from the mucosa to the submucosa. The submucosa fibroelastic connective tissue or dense connective tissue with this structure, and this structure. This structure, a mucus tubulo-alveolar mixed gland. This name, the esophageal gland proper or esophageal proper gland. This location in the submucosa of the esophagus. This structure, adipose tissue. Muscularis externa. Two layer, two direction. Inner circular, outer longitudinal muscle, and serosa and adventitia. In the esophagus, serosa and adventitia. Adventitia just in the cervical part اللي هو upper part and thoracic part. Serosa just in the abdominal part. Adventitia just type of the connective tissue. Serosa connective tissue with the simple squamous epithelia. Muscularis externa in the esophagus. In the cervical part, this layer made from the striated muscle or the skeletal muscle. In the thoracic part, inner from the smooth muscle and the outer composed from the skeletal muscle. In the abdominal part, the muscularis externa made from the smooth muscle fiber. This slide a cross section from the esophagus with the hematoxin and eosin. This slide cross section from the esophagus with the hematoxin and eosin. This slide cross section from the esophagus show the type of the epithelia: stratified squamous non-keratinized epithelia rest on the lamina propria. Lamina propria, lead type loose of the connective tissue with the blood vessel, lymph node with the lymphocyte, and the structure duct of the gland. This layer of the submucosa with the esophageal proper gland, mucus gland with the mucus acini, venule and arteriole, adipose tissue, and inner circular layer of the muscularis externa. this slide, a cross section from the esophagus show the epithelia, lamina propria, and muscularis mucosa. Muscularis mucosa and the esophagus, just one layer from the smooth muscle fiber. One layer from the smooth muscle fiber. This slide, esophagus, stomach junction. Esophagus, stomach junction. Esophagus, mucosa, submucosa, muscularis externa, and serosa. Serosa in the abdominal part. Serosa in the abdominal part. Muscularis externa, just smooth muscle fiber in the inner and outer submucosa, esophageal proper gland, and the esophageal cardiac gland. This esophageal cardiac gland just in the region near to of the stomach. Okay, just in the region near to of the stomach. The stomach. Now let's talk about of the stomach. The stomach is an expanded hollow organ situated between the esophagus and the small intestine. Or the small intestine in your first part, the duodenum. At the esophageal stomach junction, this region at the esophagus stomach junction, there is an approved transition between the stratified squamous non-keratinized epithelia to the simple columnar epithelia. The layer of the mucosa or the wall of the mucosa consists from the four layers: mucosa, submucosa, muscularis externa, and serosa. Mucosa, submucosa, muscularis externa, and the serosa. This slide, cross section from the stomach show the four layer mucosa, submucosa, muscularis externa, and the serosa. Mucosa. The mucosa, epithelia, lamina propria, and muscularis mucosa. The epithelial lining of the stomach by the simple columnar epithelia, without of the goblet cell, with surface lining cell. Simple columnar epithelia without goblet cell, with surface lining cell. Lamina propria, loose connective tissue. With this structure, my main slide the stomach, lamina propria, and this structure. This structure name the gastric. This structure name the gastric gland. The gastric gland consists from the 5 cells. This cell, one stem cell, mucous neck cell, parietal cell, chief cell, and enteroendocrine cell. Then stem cell, mucous neck cell, parietal cell or oxyntic cell, chief cell or zymogenic cell, well enteroendocrine cell or DNES cell, with the lymphatic nodule with the lymphocyte, and muscularis mucosa. Muscularis mucosa in the stomach consists from the 2 layers: inner and outer longitudinal smooth muscle fiber. Then inner outer longitudinal smooth muscle fiber. This layer of the mucosa, simple columnar epithelia with surface lining cell without of the goblet cell, lamina propria with the gastric gland, and this gastric gland consists from the 5 cells: stem, mucous neck cell, parietal cell, chief cell, and the enteroendocrine cell. Muscularis mucosa, 2 layer, 2 direction, inner and outer. Submucosa. Submucosa consists from the fibroelastic or the dense connective tissue. the submucosa of the stomach, no gland in the layer of the submucosa in the stomach, just connective tissue, nerve, blood vessel. Muscularis externa consists from the three direction of the smooth muscle fiber. One oblique, two circular, three longitudinal smooth muscle fiber. And then three direction, oblique, circular, and longitudinal smooth muscle fiber with the serosa covering of the stomach. serosa اللي هي عبارة عن connective tissue with the simple squamous epithelia. This formation from the serosa. Surface lining, epithelia, lamina propria, muscularis, mucosa. Submucosa, muscularis externa with the oblique, circular, longitudinal, visceral, serosa اللي هي البريتونيال نقصد بها الميزوثيليوم اللي نقصد بها simple squamous epithelia with connective tissue. gastric bite هسه نطلق لها. surface epithelial lamina propria اللي هذه نقصد بها الجاستريك جلاند، البارايتال، التشيف سيل، الستيم سيل، mucous neck cell، enteroendocrine cell with the lymph node, collagen fiber اللي هو type from the dense connective tissue, arteriole, venule والميسنر plexus or nerve plexus in the submucosa. لو نرجع على السلايد اللي هو الأوسوفيجال stomach ejection وهنا راح أعمل مقارنة compare between the esophagus and the stomach and the stomach according to layers. 1. Mucosa. Mucosa three layers or three region: epithelia, lamina propria, muscularis, mucosa. The epithelia in the esophagus stratified, squamous, non-keratinized epithelia. Epithelia in the stomach, simple columnar epithelia without goblet cell with surface lining cell. 1. 2. Lamina propria, loose connective tissue. Have the cardiac or esophageal cardiac gland just near of the stomach. The lamina propria in the stomach have the gastric gland with the 5 cell. Muscularis mucosa in the esophagus. Just one layer, one direction from the smooth muscle fiber. In the stomach, 2 layer. Muscularis mucosa in the stomach, 2 layer. Inner with the gastric and outer. إذن صار الاختلاف عندنا الإبيثيليا, gland and muscularis mucosa. Submucosa in the esophagus with the gland اللي هي الأوسوفيجال بروبر gland. The submucosa in the stomach, no gland. Esophageal with the esophageal proper gland. In the stomach, the submucosa, no gland. Muscularis externa in the esophagus, 2 direction, 2 layer, inner, outer. Muscularis externa in the stomach with the 3 direction, oblique, circular, and longitudinal muscle fiber. Esophageal with the serosa and adventitia. The stomach covering by the serosa. This compare between the esophagus and the stomach according to layers. The stomach can be divided in 3 regions: the cardiac region, fundus and body and pyloric region. In the cardiac region is a narrow circular band with a 1.52 of the 3 cm in the width and the transition between the esophagus and the stomach. يعني نقصد بها from the stratified squamous epithelium to of the simple columnar epithelium. With the gland, the mucus containing of the simple or branching tubular cardiac gland consists of the mucus gland cell arranged in the simple columnar epithelium. وهذه ما تميز the nucleus in the basal part of the cell and the flat. The terminal portion of this gland frequently coiled. This gland in the cardiac region, have no chief cell. In the cardiac region, have no chief cell with a few parietal cells. No chief cell with a few parietal cells. And fundus and body region. Fundus and the body region. The lamina propria in the fundus and the body region is the full with the branch tubular gastric gland with the 3 to of the 7 with the opening in the each gastric bed. Has the small lumen round nuclei surrounding by eosinophilic cytoplasm. وهذه هنا consists from the 3 parts, isthmus, neck and the base of the fundus. In the first part, the closed toe of the gastric pit and the have differentiated mucus cell undifferentiated stem cell and the parietal cell. In the second part, the whole neck consists of the stem, mucous neck cell, parietal and the enteroendocrine cell. In the basal part, the gland containing the parietal and chief with the enteroendocrine cell. This slide a cross section from the mucosa of the fundus and the body. نلاحظ هنا simple columnar epithelium with the surface lining cell and show the type of the cell اللي هو type from the gastric gland in the lamina propria اللي هي parietal stem, mucous neck cell chief cell with the enteroendocrine cell. نلاحظ هنا muscularis mucosa inner circular and outer, two layers. With the submucosa, no gland in the submucosa of the stomach. This slide shows the simple columnar epithelium with the surface lining cell and the type of the cell and the gastric gland. The basal region of the gastric and the fundus. The basal region of the gastric and the fundus region. We now show the type of the cells of the gastric gland, the parietal or chief cell. This slide from the last region of the stomach, the pyloric region, show the type of the epithelium, simple columnar epithelium with the surface lining cell. The pyloric region has the deep gastric pit into which the branch tubular pyloric gland compared with the gland in the cardiac مقارنة with the gland اللي موجودة in the cardiac region. The pyloric gland have the long pit, this long compared with the cardiac, and short coiled. With the lymphatic nodule ما يميزنا slide or region of the pyloric اللي هو lymphoid or lymphatic nodule in the gastric, in the pyloric and the mucosa. This slide a cross section from the stomach from the stomach, duodenal junction. Stomach, duodenal junction. نلاحظ pyloric, this pyloric region were part from the duodenal. Stomach, the wall of the stomach, mucosa, submucosa, muscularis externa, and serosa. Serosa, muscularis externa, و submucosa, وmucosa. Mucosa, simple columnar epithelium without of the goblet cell, gastric gland with the 5 cell, submucosa, no gland in the submucosa, muscularis externa 3 direction اللي هو الأوبليك and circular, longitudinal, and just serosa in the stomach. Compare with the duodenal. The duodenal or the small intestine part consists from the mucosa, submucosa, muscularis externa, serosa, and adventitia. Now let's do a مقارنة between the stomach and the duodenum. Stomach and the duodenum. 1. Epithelium. Epithelium in the stomach, simple columnar epithelium without goblet cell, with the surface lining cell. In the duodenal, the villi, this structure finger-shaped projection, named the villi. وهذا ما يميزنا slide small intestine. Villi just in the small intestine. This villi lining by the simple columnar epithelium with goblet cell. With the goblet cell in the stomach, without of the goblet cell. The lamina propria of the stomach with the gastric gland. This gastric gland consists from the 5 cells. The lamina propria in the duodenal have the crypt. This name, the crypt or the intestinal gland. Muscularis mucosa. Two layers, two direction, inner and outer. Inner circular, outer longitudinal. And the duodenal on the small intestine, the muscularis mucosa, one layer, and the some region have the 2 layers. Generally, one layer smooth muscle fiber. The submucosa in the stomach, no gland in the submucosa of the stomach. In the duodenal, my mesoneal slide duodenum, this bronal gland in the submucosa. Muscularis externa in the stomach, 3 direction, oblique and circular, longitudinal. Muscularis externa in the small intestine or in the duodenum, just 2 layers, circular, longitudinal, inner and outer. Last layer, serosa, just in the stomach. In the duodenal have the serosa and adventitia. This slide pyloric or the stomach duodenal junction. Thank you for listening.